They fired me for using the bathroom. Not once, not twice, but over and over, until they called it excessive. And that's when I knew I wasn't just sick, I was a target. Hi, my name is Aisha, and this is the true story of how I turned my greatest humiliation into $3.1 million and made the man who laughed at my pain disappear from the corporate world forever. If you've ever been made to feel small at work, if you've ever been punished for something you couldn't control, if you've ever been told you're too much trouble just for existing, this story is for you. So if you believe in justice, if you believe that kindness shouldn't be weakness, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell, because what happened to me, it could happen to anyone. And what I did about it? Well, you won't believe it until you hear it all. I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted to do my job. For 6 years, I worked as a project lead at Viridian Dynamics, a mid-sized tech firm in Chicago that liked to call itself innovative, inclusive, and family first. I believed them, especially after everything I'd been through. 2 years before this all started, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. If you don't know what that is, it's not just tummy trouble. It's your immune system attacking your own gut. It's pain so sharp it makes you double over in the middle of a grocery store. It's fatigue that feels like your bones are filled with wet sand. And yes, it means you need to use the bathroom, a lot, sometimes with no warning. But I didn't let it stop me. I showed up early, I stayed late, I delivered every project on time, even when I was running to the restroom between client calls, even when I had to work from home during a flare-up. And my company? They knew. I'd gone through all the proper channels. I had a doctor's note, I filed for intermittent fmla leave, which is a legal protection that lets people with serious health conditions take time off as needed without losing their job. HR approved it. My old manager, Linda, she'd even rearrange meetings if I had a bad day. For a while, life was manageable. Then everything changed. It started with an email. Please welcome Daniel Reeves, our new Senior Operations Director. At first, I didn't think much of it. New managers come and go. But the moment Daniel walked into our floor, I felt it. A shift in the air, like someone had turned off the lights and cranked up the tension. He was tall, sharp suit, expensive cologne, and a smile that never reached his eyes. He called himself a results-driven leader. What that really meant, he saw people as numbers, and if your number didn't look perfect, you were disposable. Our first team meeting with him lasted 45 minutes. He scanned the room like he was picking out who to eliminate first. Then, his eyes landed on me. Aisha, he said, voice smooth but cold. I see you've had quite a few personal days this quarter. My stomach dropped. Not because it was true, but because he said it like it was shameful, like I'd been slacking off. I'm on approved intermittent FMLA, I said calmly. For a chronic illness, HR has all the documentation. He waved a hand, like it was nothing. Right, medical stuff. But we're trying to build a high-performance culture here. We can't have people disappearing all the time. A few people shifted in their seats. No one spoke up. That was the first time he made me feel like a burden. It wouldn't be the last. Over the next few weeks, the jokes started. During a budget review, I excused myself quickly, just to the restroom down the hall. When I came back, Daniel was mid-sentence. And while Aisha was on her 3rd coffee break today, the rest of us actually got work done. Laughter. Nervous, but there. Another time, in a client call prep, I mentioned I might need to step out if my stomach acted up. Daniel leaned back, smirked, and said, "Should we install a porta potty next to your desk? Might save time." More laughter. Louder this time. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But I stayed quiet. Because I needed this job. Because I thought, maybe if I just work harder, he'll see I'm valuable. So, I did. I took on extra projects. I stayed until 8 p.m. I answered emails at 2 a.m. during a flare-up, curled up on my bathroom floor with my laptop balanced on my knees. Still, it wasn't enough. One Tuesday, I had a really bad morning. Crohn's flares hit like a storm. You never know when the lightning will strike. I sent a quick message to the team, running 15 minutes late, flare-up. Will join stand-up remotely. Daniel replied instantly in the group chat. Again? Maybe this job isn't the right fit if you can't be here consistently. I stared at my phone. My hands shook. This wasn't just unkind, it was illegal. FMLA protects you from exactly this kind of retaliation. I forwarded the message to HR. Again. 2 days later, I got a call from Maria in HR. Aisha, we spoke to Daniel. He says he was just joking. He didn't mean anything by it. Joking? I said, voice trembling. He's mocking my medical condition in front of the whole team. That's not a joke. That's harassment. Maria sighed. Look, Daniel's under a lot of pressure from corporate. Maybe just try to avoid taking breaks during core hours. I hung up, feeling sick. Not from Crohn's, but from betrayal. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My body ached. My heart ached more. I kept thinking, am I really this replaceable? Is my illness really a crime? And then a quiet voice inside me whispered, what if you stopped asking for permission and started protecting yourself? I'd always been careful. Too careful. But maybe it was time to stop being polite and start being prepared. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I turned on the voice recorder on my phone. Not to trap anyone, just in case. And that small act, it changed everything. Because 2 weeks later, Daniel called me into his office. The room was cold, sterile. No photos, no plants, just a glass desk and a view of the parking lot. He didn't offer me a seat. Aisha, we've noticed a pattern. You're out of the office too much. It's affecting team morale. I'm using legally protected leave, I said, keeping my voice steady. HR has all the documentation. He leaned forward, eyes narrow. Approved or not, it's becoming a problem. We need people who are present, not people who vanish every time they feel a little uncomfortable. I felt my face burn. But this time, I didn't look down. I looked him right in the eye. And what if I told you that I have every email, every doctor's note, and every conversation saved? For the first time, he hesitated. Then he laughed, a short, sharp sound. Save what you want. This isn't a charity. If you can't do the job, we'll find someone who can. He stood up, meeting over. As I walked out, my legs felt like jelly. But my mind? It was clear. Because I knew, deep in my bones, he was going to fire me. And when he did, I wouldn't be walking away empty-handed. I just needed to survive until then. But what I didn't know was how quickly it would happen, or how public it would become. Because 3 days later, Daniel didn't just fire me, he did it in front of everyone. And that was his biggest mistake. It was a Thursday, team all-hands meeting. Every department gathered in the big conference room. Glass walls, projector screen, fancy coffee cart in the corner. About 40 people, maybe more. I sat in my usual spot near the back, trying to be invisible. My stomach had been uneasy all morning, but I hadn't taken a break, not once. I was determined to prove I belonged. Daniel stood at the front, clicking through slides about Q3 efficiency goals. He looked sharp, confident, like he owned the room. And then he paused. His eyes scanned the crowd, stopped on me. Aisha, he said, Voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Stand up, please. My heart slammed into my ribs. All eyes turned. I stood slowly, legs stiff, palms sweating. Daniel walked toward me like a predator circling prey. "You've been with us 6 years," he said, voice dripping with fake sadness. "But lately, your performance has been inconsistent." A few people shifted. Someone coughed. "Inconsistent?" I said quietly. "I've delivered every project on time. My client feedback scores are 4.9 out of 5. He waved it off. "Numbers can be misleading. What matters is presence, reliability, and frankly, you're not showing up." Then he dropped the bomb. "As of today, your position is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." Silence. Thick, heavy silence. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred, not from pain, but from shock. But worse than the firing was the way he did it. In front of everyone. Like I was a child being scolded. Like I was nothing. Someone whispered, "Wow." Another person looked down at their laptop, embarrassed. And Daniel? He just stood there, arms crossed, like he'd done something noble. Then, as if to twist the knife, he added, "We can't let personal issues compromise team standards." Personal issues. Like my disease was a choice. Like I enjoyed running to the bathroom in agony. I wanted to collapse, but something inside me refused. I took a slow breath, looked around the room at the faces I'd worked beside for years. Some avoided my eyes. A few looked sorry. None spoke up. That silence hurt more than the firing. Then, from the back, a voice. "Is this legal?" It was Mark from DevOps. Quiet guy. Rarely said a word. Daniel turned, annoyed. "HR has reviewed the decision. It's fully compliant." But I knew better, and I knew exactly what I had in my pocket. I didn't argue, didn't cry, just nodded once. Then walked out, back straight, head high, while security followed me to my desk. They watched as I packed my things, my coffee mug, my framed photo of my mom, my stress ball shaped like a globe. Every item felt heavy with goodbye. As I walked past Daniel's office, I saw him through the glass, smirking, typing an email, probably telling corporate how he cleaned house. I didn't look back. But the moment I got home, I broke. I curled up on my couch, wrapped in my softest blanket, and sobbed until my throat was raw. Not just for the job, but for the shame. For the years I'd given them. For the way they made me feel like my body was a flaw. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, watching, silent, complicit. By 3 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, coffee cold. I pulled up my folder. Viridian, evidence. Inside, every HR approval email, every doctor's note, every FMLA form, and 17 voice recordings, each labeled with date and meeting name. I listened to the last one again, the one where Daniel said, "If you can't do the job, we'll find someone who can." My hands stopped shaking. My tears dried. Because I realized something. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person who's ever been punished for being human, for being sick, for being different, for needing a little grace. And I had the proof to burn it all down. But I couldn't do it alone. The next morning, I called the only person I trusted, my cousin Lena. She's a labor lawyer, tough as nails, fights for nurses, teachers, warehouse workers, people who get stepped on. I told her everything. She listened in silence, then said, "Send me everything, every file, every recording. And Aisha, Don't talk to anyone about this, not even your best friend. 2 days later, we met at a diner downtown. She slid a folder across the table. This, she said, tapping it, is a gold mine. She explained. Daniel didn't just violate FMLA, he violated the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA. Crohn's is a recognized disability, and firing someone because of it, that's not just wrong, it's punishable by law.
We can sue for lost wages, emotional distress, punitive damages, she said. And if we go public, they'll settle fast to avoid the headlines. I swallowed. What if they say I'm lying? She smiled. You've got recordings, Aisha. In Illinois, it's legal to record if one party consents, which you are. And HR emails? That's their own paper trail. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. But hope came with fear. Because going public meant everyone would know. My old coworkers, my neighbors, my family. They'd see me as the sick girl who sued her company, or worse, the troublemaker. Lena sighed in my face. Aisha, she said gently, justice isn't quiet. Sometimes you have to make noise to be heard. I nodded, but I wasn't ready yet. First, I needed to know. Was I really alone? So I did something risky. I logged into LinkedIn, sent a private message to 3 former coworkers I trusted. Hey, after what happened, are you okay? 2 didn't reply, but 1 did. It was Priya, my old teammate now at another firm. She wrote back within an hour. Aisha, I'm so sorry. Everyone's talking. Daniel's been doing this for months. To Maria in accounting, she has MS. To James, he's diabetic. HR just lets it slide because he delivers results. You're not crazy. You're brave. Then she added, if you ever need witnesses, I'll testify. Tears filled my eyes again, but this time they were different. Not tears of shame, tears of solidarity. I wasn't alone, and that changed everything. Over the next week, Lena filed a formal complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, and sent a demand letter to Viridian's legal team. The letter was calm, professional, but the message was clear. Your client violated federal law. Settle for $3.1 million, or we take this to trial and the press. 2 days passed. No reply. Then on the 3rd morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Aisha? A man's voice. Nervous. This is Greg from Viridian, legal. We'd like to discuss the resolution. My pulse jumped, but I stayed calm. Put it in writing and send it to my attorney. I hung up, looked out my window at the city skyline. Somewhere in one of those towers, Daniel was still sitting in his glass office thinking he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. Because while he was busy pretending nothing happened, I was building a storm. And the first raindrop? It fell inside Viridian itself. You see, I hadn't just saved the recordings for court. I'd made 1 copy and sent it, anonymously, to the company's internal ethics hotline. Just 1 file. The one where Daniel says, we can't let personal issues compromise team standards. I didn't say a word, just attached the audio. And within 48 hours, the whole company was whispering. People started asking, did you hear the recording? Is it true he fired Aisha for being sick? HR knew and did nothing? Morale plummeted. 2 senior staff quit. Clients started asking questions. Daniel tried to deny it, said it was taken out of context, but the damage was done. Because now, he wasn't just a jerk. He was a liability, and corporate hates liabilities. Still, I waited, watched, prepared. Because I knew the real battle wasn't in the office. It was in the courtroom, or the headlines, or both. And I was ready for either. But what I didn't expect
was how fast it would all come crashing down. Because 1 week after the ethics complaint, I got an email from Lena. Subject line: "They folded." My hands trembled as I opened it. Aisha, Viridian agreed to settle $3.1 million, full confidentiality waived, you can speak publicly. Daniel's terminated immediately. They're also implementing mandatory ADA and FMLA training for all managers. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed. A real, deep laugh I hadn't felt in months. Justice wasn't just coming, it had already arrived. But the story wasn't over. Because Daniel, he didn't just lose his job. He lost his reputation. And in the world of corporate leadership, that's worse than losing money. But I'll get to that. First, I had to decide, what do I do with $3.1 million? And more importantly, what do I do with my voice? Because now, people were listening, and I had a lot to say. The check came in a plain white envelope. No fanfare, no apology, just a number with so many zeros it made my head spin. $3,100,000. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I put it in my safe and went for a walk. Not because I didn't feel joy, but because something deeper was stirring inside me. All my life, I'd been taught to be quiet, to endure, to not make a scene, even when I was hurting, even when I was wronged. But this victory, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. Because while I was healing, I kept thinking about Priya's message, "You're not alone." How many others were out there, suffering in silence, afraid to speak up, scared they'd be labeled difficult just for asking to be treated like a human? That night, I sat at my kitchen table again. Same spot, different energy. Instead of fear, I felt purpose. I opened a new document, typed 3 words: how I got $3.1 million for using the bathroom. At first, it was just for me, a way to process everything. But the more I wrote, the clearer it became. This story needed to be heard, not for revenge, but for protection. Because if one person watches my video and thinks, "Wait, that's illegal?" and then stands up for themselves, then every second of pain was worth it. But before I could share it, I had one last thing to do. I needed to know what happened to Daniel, not out of spite, but out of closure. So I did what anyone would do in the digital age. I searched his name. His LinkedIn was still up, but barely. No new job, no endorsements, just a hollow profile with a faded photo. Then I found it. A post in a private HR forum. I joined under a fake name. Heard Daniel Reeves got canned from Viridian after a massive ADA lawsuit. Tried to apply here, red flags everywhere. Blocked. Another comment. Word is he's blacklisted in Chicago Tech. Even recruiters won't touch him. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt peace. Because justice isn't about destroying someone. It's about making sure they can't hurt anyone else. And Daniel, he was done. But I wasn't. I spent the next 2 weeks planning. Not just the video, but everything around it. I knew if I posted a story like this, people would call me a liar, say I was exaggerating, say I wanted attention. So I prepared. I redacted nothing. I kept every email, every recording, every legal document. And I decided, if I post this, I'll post the proof too. I bought a simple webcam, set up a ring light in my living room, wore a plain black top, no makeup, no filters. Just me, raw, real. The night before I filmed, I barely slept. Not from nerves, but from clarity. This wasn't about fame. It was about truth. And truth doesn't need glitter. The next morning, I hit record. I didn't script it. I just spoke from my heart. Hi, my name is Aisha, and I was fired for using the bathroom. I told the whole story,
Every humiliation, every sleepless night, every moment I almost gave up. I played the recording of Daniel saying, "We can't let personal issues compromise team standards." I showed screenshots of HR emails. I explained FMLA and ADA in simple terms. No jargon, just plain English. And at the end, I said this: I'm not special. I'm not brave. I just refuse to let them make me feel ashamed for being sick. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is press record. I uploaded it that night. Title: How I Got $3.1 million for Using the Bathroom. Thumbnail was just my face, calm, steady, looking straight into the camera. Text at the bottom: They fired me. Big mistake. I didn't tell anyone, didn't promote it, just hit publish, and went to bed. The next morning, my phone was exploding. 500 views, then 2,000, then 10,000. Comments poured in. This happened to me too. I didn't know I had rights. Crying, you gave me hope. Sharing this with my HR team right now. One comment stopped me cold. I work at Veridian. Everyone's talking about your video. HR just sent a company-wide email about ADA training. You changed this place. I cried again, but this time it was relief. By day 3, the video hit 100,000 views, then 500,000. News outlets reached out, podcasts invited me on, lawyers offered to help people for free after watching it. But the most powerful messages came from strangers. I was about to quit my job because my boss mocked my migraines. After your video, I filed an HR complaint. They apologized. My daughter has Crohn's. Thank you for showing her she's not broken. That's when I knew this wasn't just my story anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been made to feel small. So I made a decision. I would keep going, not as a victim, but as a voice. I renamed my channel Workplace Justice. Simple, clear, no fluff. Every video would be real stories, real laws, real solutions. No animations, no fake drama, just truth. And I started planning my next video. How to record your boss legally, and when you should. But before I could film it, something unexpected happened. An email arrived. Subject: Thank you. From Maria, former HR at Veridian. I almost deleted it, but I opened it. Aisha, I've lost sleep since you were fired. I knew it was wrong, but I stayed silent because I was scared. Your video woke me up. I quit Veridian last week. I'm now getting certified in workplace ethics. You gave me the courage to do the right thing. Thank you. I read it 3 times. Then I saved it in a folder called Why This Matters. Because revenge isn't just about winning. It's about waking people up. And that's when I realized my revenge wasn't the lawsuit. It wasn't the money. It was the ripple. Every person who watched my video and stood up for themselves, that was my victory. Every manager who thought twice before mocking an employee, that was my justice. And every time someone said, "Wait, that's illegal," that was my legacy. But I wasn't done yet, because while I was building something new, Daniel was trying to disappear. And I couldn't let him vanish without one final truth being known. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out. Not to gloat, not to shame, but to offer a mirror. And what happened next shocked even me.
I didn't send the email right away. I wrote it, deleted it, wrote it again, 3 times. Because this wasn't about anger, it was about truth. Finally, I settled on just 4 sentences. Daniel, I know you've lost your job, your reputation, maybe even your sense of who you are. But I hope you've learned this. Power isn't about control. It's about responsibility. Aisha. I didn't ask for an apology. I didn't demand anything. I just wanted him to see what he'd done, not as a villain, but as a human who chose poorly. I hit send, and I didn't expect a reply. But 3 days later,
He answered. His email was short, shaky, real. Aisha, I thought I was being tough, efficient, a leader, but I was just scared. Scared I'd look weak if I showed compassion. I watched your video, cried in my car. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm getting help, therapy, leadership coaching. You didn't just cost me a job, you cost me my illusion. And for that, thank you. I read it over and over, not because I needed his redemption, but because it proved something I'd always believed. People aren't evil, they're untaught. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is giving someone the chance to become better. But the real fallout wasn't just personal, it was public. 2 weeks after my video went viral, a major business magazine published an article, The $3.1 million Bathroom Break: How One Woman Exposed Corporate Ableism. Overnight, Veridian became a cautionary tale. Recruiters started screening managers for ADA FMLA knowledge. HR departments across the country updated their training. And me? I was invited to speak at a national workers' rights conference. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of nurses, teachers, warehouse workers, and office staff, I didn't feel famous. I felt connected. I told them, you don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to be prepared. Document, know your rights, and never let shame silence you. After the talk, a woman in the front row stood up, tears in her eyes. She had lupus. Her boss had cut her hours after she asked for flexible scheduling. She'd brought her HR emails with her, printed, folded, worn at the edges. She whispered, I didn't know I could fight back. I hugged her, and in that moment, I knew this was my real job now, not making videos for views, but building a lifeline for people who feel trapped. My channel grew, slowly, steadily, not millions of subscribers, but thousands of real messages every week. Your video gave me the courage to file a complaint. I showed your video to my union rep. We're changing our policy. My son has Crohn's. Thank you for showing him he's not broken. That's the thing about justice. It doesn't roar. It ripples. And those ripples, they reached further than I ever imagined. 6 months after the settlement, I got a call from a nonprofit that helps low-income workers navigate employment law. They asked me if I'd join their board. I said yes. Then came the offer I never saw coming. A major streaming service wanted to turn my story into a short documentary. I almost said no. Too flashy, too Hollywood. But then I thought, what if this reaches someone in a small town with no lawyers, no support, no voice? So I said yes, on one condition: keep it real. No dramatization, just the truth. The documentary dropped last fall. It's 22 minutes long. No actors, just me, my recordings, my documents, and interviews with Priya, Lena, and even Maria from HR. It ends with me sitting in my living room, the same spot where I filmed that first video. I look into the camera and say, they fired me for using the bathroom, but what they didn't know was that I'd already won. The documentary got nominated for an award, but the real win? The Hotline for Workers' Rights saw a 300% increase in calls the week it aired. That's when I knew this wasn't just my revenge. It was a revolution. A quiet one, but powerful. Now when I walk into a room, I don't feel small. I feel steady, because I know my worth isn't tied to a job, a title, or someone's approval. It's tied to my integrity, my courage, my refusal to be erased. And Daniel, last I heard, he's working as a trainer for a nonprofit that teaches ethical leadership to new managers. He sent me a note last year. I use your story in my workshops, not as a warning, as a lesson in humility. I keep it in my Why This Matters folder, because real justice isn't about punishment, it's about transformation. So what's the lesson here? It's not sue your boss. It's not record everyone. It's this. Your pain has power, but only if you protect it, document it, and dare to share it. For so long, I thought being sick made me weak, but it was my illness that taught me resilience, my firing that taught me courage, and my silence, finally broken, that taught me my voice mattered. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. You are not a burden for needing care. You are not too much for having limits. And you are never alone. Because somewhere out there, someone is fighting the same battle. And your story might be the light they need to keep going. So stand tall, speak up, and never let anyone make you ashamed for being human. If this story moved you, please hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because justice only spreads when we pass it on. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been punished for something you couldn't control? You're not alone. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is press record. I'm Aisha, and this is Workplace Justice.